Hey folks, this is Kelani. I hope you're all enjoying the pre-patch events as they unroll, or at least trying to. I know it's not a great deal of content right now, which is a bit disappointing, especially with all of the hype leading up to the new expansion. Honestly, I thought the pre-patch event has sort of missed the mark already. I know what to expect from the next 2 weeks because it's been up on the beta for a pretty long time at this point, but I thought the dev team might have something hidden up their sleeve to whip out in these last 4 weeks of Legion to give us a really awesome send-off and get everyone super hyped for Battle for Azeroth, but right now there hasn't really been anything special. The first week was obviously a bit of a time buffer to make sure all of the fires were put out, which was springing up all over the place thanks to the various game changes and system changes that were implemented in patch 8.0. That's understandable. It seems like they knew they were going to have to hotfix and patch a bunch of stuff as it was discovered, either because they didn't have enough time for testing, or some of the things were just too specific and odd that they didn't get caught before the patch hit live servers. Either way, giving them a week to make sure everything was running smoothly is fine, but that means we're left with a 3-week pre-patch event. Surely they can fill 3 weeks with some fun, exciting content, right? Well, apparently not. Hopefully you've gone through the content we have access to right now. If you're waiting until next week, I wouldn't blame you, but there's only about 30 to 45 minutes of quests available. If you play on both factions and can go through it from both points of view, you might stay busy a little longer than that, but most of the time you're flying from place to place, acting as the standard delivery pigeon that general quests always make you feel like. I think the Wisp Wall was really cool. I think that's probably the best part, but flying back and forth between each little camp several times just to talk to different NPCs got a little tiresome, especially when nothing really happened in between. A lot of the story doesn't really come through in quests, and honestly it never really has, but I'm really excited to see the ending cinematic when the tree finally gets burned down. We don't know why, we don't know who does it, we just know it happens. That's going to be the big question that gets answered, and it's only in the cinematic. That's going to be next week, so keep your fingers crossed that Blizzard will still end up surprising us somewhere somehow, but if they don't, at least we'll have the cinematics. They should be worth all the trouble. So this week is halted when the Horde are trying to push through Darkshore and the Alliance are holding fast. Apparently we won't give the enemy a peaceful night's rest, but most of us will probably be leaving the zone for the next week or so until something new becomes available. I hope the NPCs can keep each other busy until we return, because we're not going to be there. It just doesn't really feel like the beginning of a war when it's supposed to be the middle of one. We're supposed to be fighting on the front lines, pushing the other faction back until one of us breaks. In this story, that's going to be the Alliance, but instead of having content that we can contribute to, we just have a handful of world quests. Wouldn't it be more interesting if we had more war effort type quests? They could range from anything from venturing out and taking out a few of the opposite faction to handing over materials, potions, weapons, anything that could actually push the war effort forward. Even if the quests themselves are time gated, it would at least feel like we have something to do, instead of, alright, that's it for chapter 1, come back next week for chapter 2. There's no real participation in these events, we just sat in the back seat watching everything unfold. Now when it comes to time-gated content, I know a lot of people have a lot of different things to say. Personally, I think time-gating content is fine, when there's enough of it to spread among the several weeks. If you have an hour's worth of story and quests and you want to spread it across 3 weeks, there's no wonder people will start to complain and feel like they don't have much to do. There needs to be enough meat on the bones if you're wanting to ration it out, and this week just doesn't seem to have enough of the good stuff to warrant splitting it up into multiple parts, and that's ignoring the parts of this particular story that don't even make that much sense. Are we really at a standstill for a full week? I understand from a design perspective that they want this event to unfold over several weeks, but at this point, I don't know why they didn't just wait another week to release the whole thing at once. At least then it would feel somewhat like a blitzkrieg through Darkshore up to Orberdean and then on to Teldrassil for the Horde, and then it would have an ending and an actual resolution. A few months back everyone was getting excited about the Prepatch event, and rightly so. A Prepatch is usually pretty exciting stuff, and some of us were expecting a 6-week Prepatch cycle because that's what Legion did. The Prepatch for Legion was a blast for a variety of reasons, and there was definitely enough to do, so much so that we got an extra 2 weeks to experience it. We figured Battle for Azeroth will probably do the same thing. And then we missed the window for 6 weeks. And then we missed the window for 5 weeks, and we realised we would just have to settle for 4 weeks of pre-patch goodness, except the first week didn't bring anything at all. But with how much content is actually on offer, it's no wonder we didn't get the pre-patch sooner. There's only 3 weeks of story spread pretty thinly. So I've mentioned the Legion Prepatch briefly, and it seems like everywhere you look, everyone is comparing the BFA Prepatch event to the Legion Prepatch event. There's a pretty good reason for that. Not only was there a lot more content to work your way through in Legion, but it was rewarding, repeatable, and it actually felt like something was happening in-game. The Legion was invading zones across Azeroth, hordes of demons were marching upon quest hubs, elite commanders were scattered throughout the zone waiting to squash any unsuspecting victims that wandered too close. And the game felt alive, not only because of the ties to the next expansion, but because of how many people were taking part in the event. Killing an elite or a rare in an invasion zone with your full raid group of allies was a thrill, but watching everyone mount up and fly off to the next target was amazing. It underlined the MMO in MMORPG. You could actually see that people are playing the game with you instead of seeing one or two other chaps running around while the rest of your interactions are with NPCs. I feel like they could have just done so much more with these events, but if they were planning on just having 3 weeks of storytelling, I can see why they wouldn't want to commit the resources required to do some extra stuff. But if we were given a 6-week pre-patch, they could have filled the downtime between quests with events similar to invasions. Instead of demons in the Legion, they could have done something similar to Warfronts. In Warfronts, periodically the opposite faction will send out a large wave of forces which follow a set path towards your camps. Can you imagine if Alliance forces cut around and started pushing down to Zoromgar and Ashenvale, or even pushing down to try and retake Astronar? I think one of the key reasons the Legion invasions were so successful was because they were timed and limited events. Everyone had to be in the zone at the right time to take part. World quests don't really work in the same way. Anyone can do them whenever they want. The freedom to play when you want is definitely valuable, but it's not going to bring the same sense of community involvement, especially with the group finder being terrible after the patch. I would just love to see more world events, and it seems like there could be a lot of potential here with another Alliance vs Horde storyline. Repel the forces, protect the camps, have some semblance of back and forth here where you're actively defending or attacking the opposite faction, something to get everyone involved in. Now when I say everyone, that would probably include lower level characters. We're in low level zones after all, and one of the reasons why so many people loved the Legion pre-patch was because they could get any of their alts caught up and ready to play in the next expansion. This pre-patch event limits you to your max level characters. You can't participate on lower levels even if you wanted to, and you certainly can't do anything extra in this pre-patch cycle to work towards getting your alts up to max level so you can actually play them in Battle for Azeroth. I think if Blizzard had included something to help with leveling, there wouldn't be as much of a backlash from all of the problems patch 8.0 caused at lower levels. They're working hard to fix things, I'm sure. Hotfixes are flying out left and right, but there's so much which is still broken. Leveling shouldn't be a chore. Leveling up to old and outdated expansions should be even less so. Participating in something new, exciting and relevant as a new player would probably be way more interesting than heading back to Northrend to try and struggle through ridiculously scaled monsters and quests. Smashing some Alliance skulls and burning down some Horde war camps would probably get the majority of players a little more pumped up for what is supposed to be another expansion filled with faction conflict. I can see why they wouldn't want to include a leveling portion in this pre-patch cycle specifically. And it probably just comes down to allied races. They don't want players to be able to level up as a Lightforged Draenei, Nightborn, High Mountain Tauren or Void Elf easily or quickly to earn their heritage armor sets, and allowing everyone and their brother to level their alts quickly and efficiently to max level probably hurts the sales of character boosts. Probably not a great idea when it comes to Blizzard's wallet and balance bucks, but it would have been a nice addition for the players. Another thing that the Legion pre-patch had that this one seems to be lacking is meaningful or fun rewards. Gathering up nether shards to spend on gear, toys and pets was a great addition to the pre-patch event, and it gave players a reason to actually partake, even if they weren't leveling up alts. That same system could have so easily been copy-pasted onto the BFA event if there was something in the world to actually do. Have the currency be Alliance or Horde insignias which can be gathered from the forces which make up the world events. Alliance soldiers marching into Horde territory. Kill them all for a few badges. Horde soldiers trying to create another base camp in Darkshore. Take them out and steal a few spikes. Turn in those insignias for gear, toys, pets, whatever fits the theme. It would have been a great chance to introduce some cool faction-specific transmogs as well. It wouldn't have to be anything too shiny, just simple Horde or Alliance attire to really set the mood for Battle for Azeroth. Instead of all of those things, we have a few world quests which reward reskin models from past expansions. It's just a little disappointing. Thankfully, if you have some undergeared alts or if you haven't played in a while, those items can help you gear up for Battle for Azeroth. The 210 item level gear is on par with Antorus normal gear, so if you have been gone for a long time, you could even gear up to get into normal or heroic groups for various Legion raids so you can experience them before we move on to Battle for Azeroth. If your characters are rocking some decent gear, either from heroic or mythic Antorus, chances are you just won't have anything to gain from clearing out the few world quests that are currently available. Hopefully things ramp up a little more in the coming weeks. I'm still really excited to see the cinematics at the end of this campaign and at the end of the Battle for Lordaeron, but so far the events and content itself has been pretty lackluster in my opinion. Thankfully Battle for Azeroth is only a few weeks away, so even if we don't have much to do right now, it won't be long before we're all gobbling up every last morsel of content on offer in the new expansion. I just hope players are still as excited as I am when BFA finally rolls around. But that's it for this video. What do you think of the pre-patch events so far? Do you feel like anything is missing? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. If you want to hop on that train, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.